Hello and welcome to the program. My name is Michael Finney. Today, I am joined by Rambo Van Halen. Would you like to say hello, sir?
Hello, Michael Finney. Thanks for having me.
Glad we can make this happen. Glad we can talk about you and your new release. Tell us a little bit about you, where you come from, how you developed as a creative, anything you feel is important in the mythos and background of Rambo.
Sure, here we go. Rambo's not my real name. I know that's kind of shocking, Michael, but that's my pseudonym. And I guess now I'm an author. We'll call it a pen name. But yeah, no, I'm a high school dropout. I did try to go to college. That didn't last very long or do very well. Gosh, I fell into the film industry as a young man, and I've been there for over 20 years now. Mostly in production roles. Sometimes as a line producer, it's sort of the highest I rose in the business, which is sort of a mid-level management role. But that involves doing a lot of different stuff. And these days I'm still in it, and I do what I call specialized crew work outside of Los Angeles.
Very cool. I have no exposure to Hollywood or the traditional filmmaking industry, but I do feel like it's valuable to mention we share this little bit of filmmaking overlap. I have no real credentials or credits in that sense, but I've put out a couple of shorts, and I got a documentary out, and I like making film. I guess maybe what was your favorite part of any of that? Being, I feel like more on the behind the camera technical production side of things.
Well, it's just, it can be fun. And, I'm not the type of person who's qualified to work in an office. It's something I just could never hack. So it's nice that every day is different, and we're always, it's always something new, always learning new things. But there's something about, working with a team. There's a camaraderie that happens because you're working such long hours and under such pressure with these people. That's, I think, the thing I like the most. It's just really just the camaraderie with the crew and everybody. But there's something about just, building something. And that's sort of what we do. I see, film production at a large scale. It's more like, it's not even like a factory. It's more like mill work. The workflows that we use in the industry, they really haven't changed that much since Thomas Edison invented movies in the 1890s. So it's really like working in a Victorian era mill. A lot of people don't get that. It's very blue collar work. And there's a veneer of glamour to it, but once you're on the inside, there's no glamour at all. There's nothing glamorous about getting up at 4 a.m. and going to work. No matter what you're doing. And there's nothing glamorous about working 16-hour days. And there's nothing glamorous about, these stages are really just mills, or this is what they are. They're not, I hesitate to even call them factories, because the way we do things was invented before, Henry Ford started mass producing automobiles, right? So we're kind of building these things one at a time, sort of design building, and every project is totally unique. And yeah, there you go. It's just kind of fun. And it's been, I've had a good run, and it's sort of the best opportunity I found in life. Unfortunately, it's a funny business. Nobody wants their kids doing this shit. Like, nobody, including me. Although I think one of my sons has some. He might have some skills, so we'll see if it turns into a marketable career for him. But there you go, the film business.
People are going to be sad to hear that it's more grind than romance, but what isn't?
No, it really is. I mean, and it's such a funny business because on one hand we're it's a consumer product. It's a mass consumer product that we're making, right? But on the other hand, unlike a washing machine or an automobile, it's also art at the same time. And there's some, very weird tensions that happen just between sort of the artistic interests and the business interests. Which, as I'm learning now that I've kind of gone through the publishing process, probably not that different from publishing, right?
Yeah, fair.
You have this book that is a piece of art, but it also needs to be sold. So that's been fascinating going through that process.
This is a great point to transition into your background on writing. Well done. Tell us where the interest came from in writing, maybe when you started getting familiar with the written word or falling in love with putting your words on page or screen, anything like that.
Yeah, God, I can even go back to grade school. I was a late reader, right? I was sort of I don't want to say a broken home, but it was kind of a broken home that I grew up in, and the schools didn't care. My parent figures didn't care, and I was actually, this is in the book, I was actually taught to read by a librarian at the local library, where I would sort of go after school and hang out and look at picture books. And this woman, God bless her, took the time to teach me how to read, and that would have been about fifth grade, something like that. And from there, I kind of took off with reading and just became a voracious reader. And I started writing. Little dumb stories, and I continued that through high school until I, couldn't take the bullshit anymore and dropped out after 10th grade. But even then, I kept writing. In my 20s, I started submitting stuff just to any publication that had a way to submit things, either by mail or by email. And nobody bit, not one single person, not even a rejection note. And after many years, I gave up. But I would return to it from time to time. I tried my hand at screenwriting. I have a couple of screenplays that are somewhere. I have no idea, in the bowels of some hard drive somewhere. I could probably dig them out. But nobody really took an interest in my writing until I started posting on Twitter, which wasn't that long ago. I mean, this was about a year and a half ago. I just started writing on Twitter, and it was sort of an exercise for me to create without really caring about the consequences, because I think we all have this little voice inside of us that tells us, like, oh, nobody's going to like this, and this will never sell, and it's not good enough, and you need to make it better. And this Rambo Van Halen thing was just an exercise in ignoring that voice and just putting stuff out there. And very rapidly, I gained a Twitter following, and started writing more on Substack. And people started, my followers started saying, "Hey, you should write a book." So I'm like, "Cool, I'll write a book." So last July, I started writing this book and kicked it out in about 5 weeks. And I was, going to planning on self-publishing. I was looking for an editor, and then Passage Press, my publisher, saw it and said they wanted to publish it. So there you go.
Very cool. Yeah, great development arc inside of not only the deep background, the youth lore, but then coming up and finding success and finding a publisher willing to take a chance on it and put it out there for you.
Yeah, and the amazing thing about the internet is I just started putting stuff out there, and the audience found me, right? I didn't have to go to them. And that was kind of shocking. I didn't think that was going to happen.
Who are some of your favorite authors? Who are you reading coming up? Who do you pay attention to now?
Gosh, it's so funny. I love Cormac McCarthy. I have my phases. Like, I've gone through, my sci-fi phases, and I've gone through my hard-boiled detective fiction phases, and I've gone through my, gonzo journalism phases. Gosh, and one of the things I really like reading, honestly, is just dry, heavy history. That's one of the things I love the most. As far as, gosh, what's the last novel I read? I reread Fight Club recently. I read that soon after I saw the movie, I guess around the year 2000. So it's been almost 25 years, but I revisited that. That still holds up. I think maybe there's one thing, let me grab the book real quick. If there's one thing that maybe influenced this book, it was a book called The Long Haul. And it's a memoir by a guy named Finn Murphy. And it's about the trucking industry and how, as a young man, he fell into being a truck driver. And it's just, it's a great read, but there's something about that kind of reminded me of my own journey in the film industry. How just, this kid with no prospects just fell into it, and everything kind of clicked, and I rolled with it, and I entered this very strange world. And I didn't really realize how strange it was at the time. It's taken me a long time to kind of, when I think back about these incidents, I'm like, wow, that was really fucking weird. So, I mean, if there's any influence on this book, it's probably that Finn Murphy book.
It's funny how we find influences and
right.
how they kind of work their way through the things that we create along the path, where it surfaces or how it surfaces, and when, something can kind of sit under our attention for long periods of time, years, and then all of a sudden you find it kind of bubbling up to the top.
No, exactly. No, and it's a funny thing, and it's really funny too because I've never really thought about style, or I've never really thought about technical. The I don't even have the language to describe it, Michael. Like, because I didn't go to school, right, and I never was trained as a writer. It's something I just did, and I just sort of wrote what felt intuitively correct. So, who knows really what influenced me, and it certainly wasn't any teachers along the way. So it's a funny thing. So, where my style came from, I really don't know. I really couldn't tell you. I mean, obviously I've been influenced by everything I've ever read. But what in particular, I'm not sure.
That's all right. I got a couple popcorn questions for you here. Favorite Rambo movie?
The first one, First Blood.
Fair, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Thread off of that, what is the movie with Benicio del Toro and Tommy Lee Jones, came out in the mid 2000s? It's very much like First Blood. Oh gosh.
Oh my god, I have no idea.
Oh man, it's so good. Actually, yeah, we're gonna look that up real quick, because if you have not seen that and you like First Blood, it's a spiritual remake almost. I feel like, hold on, let's find this, because oh man, I love that movie.
Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro.
The Hunted, right? Is that it?
I've never seen that.
Oh
no, I've never seen that.
Yeah, you got to see it. Absolutely must see The Hunted.
Now, was it like a U.S. Marshals spinoff, or
no? It's a standalone.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, great film though.
Yeah, I will check it out.
Yeah, definitely put that on the list, because it's like Rambo, First Blood, but it's even more.
Oh, it's William Friedkin. Oh, very cool. How have I not seen this?
I don't know. You must have been busy. It just snuck by. A lot of people didn't see it.
Yeah, I mean, that happens. That happens with movies. I wish I had some encyclopedic knowledge of film, but one of the ironies of working in the film business is, I mean, one, you're just too busy, right? I mean, it's just such an all-encompassing thing. And two, like, a movie has to be like really excellent for me to enjoy it, because I see all the mistakes and I see all the compromises that I'm not sure that, most people would see, just because I know what happens behind the scenes.
Yeah, you've seen how the sausage gets made.
Exactly. So I skip a lot of movies. Like, if I even smell it, I'm like, forget that.
Follow-up question here. Favorite Van Halen? Era, album, song?
Favorite, all of it.
All of it.
I mean, definitely 1984, the whole album. And despite the name, I'm not a huge Van Halen fan. It's just this absurd name that I came up with.
It works.
And I actually cribbed it from there's a Montenegrin musician named Rambo Amadeus. Long story, but I met this dude once. I don't remember anything about him. Couldn't tell you anything about his music. I think he was on the Eurovision Song Contest a few times. But that name just stuck with me, that Rambo Amadeus. And over the years as a producer, I would need a pseudonym once in a while. And it was usually if I was doing a non-union production and I had a union person on the crew, I'd have to make up a name for them so the union wouldn't figure out they're doing it. And for a long time, I used Rambo Amadeus. And I had this friend of mine who is Austrian, who I needed to like cover his name. and I thought, okay, Amadeus is a little too on the nose. So I went with Van Halen. I just thought that just sounds awesome. And so that just became my go-to pseudonym over the years. And eventually, I started this new Twitter account. That's the name I chose.
Massive 80s mashup.
Exactly.
Favorite decade, perhaps?
Possibly. I mean, there's some sort of awesomeness about 80s culture between, when heavy metal went glam and, the popcorn movies of that era, the big action films. Something very cool and something vital, about it that I think we're missing today. And it was just fun, just fun culture. We weren't trying to do anything deep or profound or change society. It was just like, this is fun. This is entertainment.
Yeah, good perspective. I feel like there's so much media that came out. Well, there always is, but so much that came out that is it's like distilled in the 80s down to, the core of what it needed to be, as opposed to trying to do too much, really.
I mean, yeah, possibly. I mean, I think in a lot of it, I think it was just, it's just sort of pure entertainment. But, but all the glam rockers, like, not that I'm a huge, I don't want to say glam, but, the hair metal bands, not that I'm a huge fan of that, but there's something in that aesthetic that, boy, it's very attractive. It's just like we're having fun and we don't give a fuck.
Let's talk about the book.
Sure.
Hollywood Samizdat. Where'd it come from? How did it start? What were your goals? Anywhere you like?
I had no goals. There were no goals. The goal was just to write a book. And a lot of this, what it started as was a collection of stories. I hesitate to call it a memoir, but a collection of biographical stories, mostly revolving around the film industry. And a lot of these actually, the root were Twitter posts, and I went back and rewrote them for the book. And sort of, expanded on a lot of points. It's funny what happened. What I wanted the goal was sort of just to kind of show people sort of what it's really like to be on the inside, not about, technical stuff, not about, celebrity gossip stories, but, how it feels to be there. Because, most people just have no clue what it's like, and what they think it's like is completely wrong. But, it's a funny thing that happens that, once I started writing, it didn't become as much a story about Hollywood as a story about myself and, how I got there and, what drives me. And yeah, and a lot of my demons, just talking about that too. And especially in the context of this business that it's hard to separate myself from because I've been there so long and it's so intense. And I've spent so many hours doing it. You really don't have a life. When you're making a movie, you don't have a life. You're there, 15, 16 hours a day. You go home, you sleep, you come back and do it again the next day. And you do that for months on end. And as such, it's really hard to make personal relationships. It's really hard to keep a marriage together. The divorce rate is astronomical. And it's it really takes a toll on people. And it took a toll on me. Like straight up. And a lot of the books about that. And, and this question of, as it was, eating me alive and I know it's eating me alive, why do I still do it? Why do I still go back? And so that's sort of where it went. And it's just amazing, when you start creating something, you don't really know what's going to come out. And I just let it flow.
How long did it take you to put it together?
Oh, I had a pretty solid, what I thought was a pretty solid first draft or a good draft in about 5 weeks. Just me writing every day. Spending 2 hours a day doing it. I can write pretty quickly. I can kick out 2,000 words an hour if I want to. And then one of the nice things about going with the publisher as opposed to self-publishing is they found a really great editor for me. And I went through it with him for 4 months, 5 months, back and forth. And it was great. It was like having this is my first time working with an editor. And it's like, having a coach. And it's really funny too, because, his role as an editor, it's a lot like what I used to do as a producer, actually, with directors. You're just trying to make it better and just trying to bring out the best product we possibly can. And so, yeah, it was a wonderful experience. Actually, that was probably the best experience of the writing process. And, and along the way, I sort of got this sort of crash course in writing that I'd never had before. And that was interesting too. And I think I'm a better writer after going through that with his name's Michael LaCoy, who you might know.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I would highly recommend. I mean, if for any writer, if you're considering self-publishing, set some money aside and hire an editor. Don't just have your buddy do it. Get someone who's a pro, who's going to tell you what you need to hear and not what you want to hear. And I think things will turn out a lot better. That's my advice after after one book.
Hey,
that's what I'd say.
It doesn't take any more than one experience to inform you about better processes and procedures. So yeah, it's good to hear those things, these sort of technical behind the scenes aspects of, working in film, making a book, and as it turns out, a book about working behind making films.
Right.
When does the book come out?
It is available for pre-order now from Passage Press, and I think it ships at the end of July.
Very cool. Yeah.
So I'm told that was a really fast turnaround, that from writing to actually having a published book in under a year is almost unheard of.
Yeah.
But God, it felt like incredible. Compared to what I usually do, it felt very slow.
No, it's pretty fast. I mean, honestly, usually if you're going, say, the traditional route with, the publishing companies that we all know, say New York based or whatever. Yeah, that process can take a long time because they have a schedule, they have a process. It might not necessarily fit within what they already have in line, but if you're working with, and arguably Passages is an indie publishing company, and they can really focus on what you're doing to be able to get the thing together and out the door. Ideally they would all work that way, to be able to just get it put together, get it edited, get covers produced, and deal with printing and shipping and ordering and all the rest.
Marketing, that's.
Yeah, and the marketing, which is ongoing forever, easily if your whole process of getting the book out is only a year, you can be marketing the thing for indefinitely, right, into the future, and trying to drive awareness and readership for it, because it's an evergreen piece of media or product. It's not as if it expires at some point.
No, exactly. No, yeah. So I mean, yeah, definitely interesting process. And kind of like film, how you're still doing things like they were in the 1890s. I feel like publishing really hasn't changed that much since Gutenberg. I think whatever workflows the Gutenberg set down way back when are probably alive and well today in today's publishing industry.
What are some things we haven't heard or don't know that perhaps we should know about the book or yourself or writing, your thoughts on media, film industry, anything like that?
Well, it's a dying thing. And it's kind of sad. And even in the year since I've kind of finished, since I started writing, there's been so much change in the industry that, I don't really know what's going to be there in 3 to 5 years. I don't know if there's going to be anything left. And Los Angeles as a production center is dead. And I don't think that's ever coming back. That was unclear when I started writing the book. Now I think we can probably write the eulogy for Hollywood. Now, people are always going to want movies. They're always going to want stories told in a visual way. But, how that happens, I really don't know. And, of course, AI is going to be eating into it. And I don't know if that's a bad thing. It's certainly bad for all the film workers out there like me. It might be great for the audience, and it might be great for independent creators who suddenly have access to do things that they couldn't do.
Right.
I don't think people realize how many people and how much money it takes to make a movie. Like, your typical bog standard Marvel movie, thousands of people worked on that thing. And they were all very well paid, or most of them were very well paid. And that's going away, and it's going to go from thousands to hundreds to maybe dozens to maybe just 2 or 3 people. And then, the last step is the algorithm is just going to do it for you. It's just going to say, hey, Michael, here's a movie we think you'll like, and you might like it. And so that's a, it's a huge change that we're going from something that was painstakingly crafted to, these new tools that definitely going to change things. And, and Mike, the question that I don't know the answer to is if that, the AI generated actors can do the same performance as a human. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if we ever get there.
Yeah.
And, there's something that happens on a set where it's a collaboration between the actor and the director and the camera guy, and they're all kind of vibing off each other. And that's how these great performances happen. And it'll be interesting to see if that can take place being all digitally generated.
Auteurs making boutique films and books, the handcrafted homespun way. That could still exist. That could fit in there somewhere.
It could, but I think when you look at the cost difference, as instead of spending $100 million on a movie, if you could spend, soon it's going to be, $20 million and then $1 million and then probably under $1 million and maybe just a few $1,000s eventually in render time to make something. When you look at that cost difference, I mean, you would be nuts to do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, it has to be for a particular application or value. You have to really want to see certain actors or certain aesthetics, choices, people involved, names that can put an audience into the seats.
Yeah, and that's a funny thing is, we're not making new celebrities. Like that's kind of stopped.
Yeah.
The internet and social media kind of killed that because it used to be you would take a guy like Brad Pitt, who's a very good actor, by the way. He's a great on-screen presence. And you would sort of make him into a star because, he's a talent, but he's not unique. There are many Brad Pitts out there that we could take and shape his public persona and turn into a celebrity. That whole machine died. It's done. Back when there were 3 TV channels on the air, you could do that. You can't do that now. So that's why you look at, who's still a big celebrity. It's the people whose stars were kind of forged in the 90s and early 2000s. And there's nobody who's come along who's eclipsed the Tom Cruises and the Brad Pitts and the George Clooney's of the world.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely seeing that. And the only people maybe still kind of, I don't know, finding a way to the top are talent threats that can do different things like music, stage performance, acting. Somebody like an Ariana Grande, I think she's ascended maybe over the last 10 years.
Sure. And there's lots of talent out there. Like there's lots of people who can do that, who can act, they can sing, they can play an instrument, they can dance. They've always been there, but they kind of get pigeonholed in these roles that most of these guys, when they trained in all these things.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the path they took. But, yeah, so they're out there. But, in this age of social media and this fragmented audience, yeah, I don't know that we're going to have stars that are still living that you could build a movie around. Because with AI, we can take dead celebrities and build movies around them.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if we see a new Humphrey Bogart movie in the near future.
And wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't that be nice? It might be good.
Well, hey, Rambo Van Halen, I appreciate you taking the time to talk today and telling us about your book, your background, your professional life. And this has been a good conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Good luck with the book. And, whatever happens with Hollywood and filmmaking, you'll find your way through it. And you're going to make AI films.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be working at Walmart as the greeter. I think that's my next career move.
I doubt it. But hey, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk again before too long.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.